read Alien initially, I wasn't drawn to the project. Ridley wasn't attached. It was, my understanding was going to be a $2 or $3 million budget on it. And I thought, well, you're not going to make an effective film for that. And, you know, it's a nice piece of material, has potential, but you're not giving it that potential. And that, I thought, was that. And about a month later, I got a call from England, one of the producers at the time, and told me that Ridley was going to be directing it and that there was a budget that would realize the potential. And then it became something else. It became working with Ridley Scott and learning about filmmaking.
What Ridley's vision, as far as the actors were concerned, was he wanted it very much to be not of any time or any world. So it was important there was a mixture of nationalities. I cannot remember if Yaphet Kotto's character was written as such, but he was obviously perfect for that part because he's so vivid, a wonderful actor.
When I first met Ridley, the first meeting we had, I said, I don't like science fiction films or monster pictures. I opened with that, which was obviously a good opening. And he said, well, actually, I don't either, but I think I can make something of this one.
The casting of John Hurt, I think it is known that there was another actor originally playing that part, John Finch, who became ill, and we had to recast.
Probably identified at that moment very strongly by playing Macbeth for Polanski. I'd been impressed by Polanski's work anyway, but particularly also by Finch. And so he said, yeah, sure, I'd love to do this. He came on board. First day, first shot, he starts to look as yellow as this pencil. And I thought, God, what's wrong? And we did a couple of takes, and he seemed absolute lackluster, no energy. He's sagging in his seat, and we cut. And I got up and went over to him and said, what's up, you all right? He said, no, I'm terrible. I said, I feel terrible. He said, how do I look? I said, terrible. And we had to lift him out of his seat, and he was carried away. And it turns out that he was a diabetic.
I had been asked if I'd like to do Alien, but I had already committed to the South African film, so that was dropped. And the actor that was going to play Kane later, for one reason or another, had to drop out.
That night, we had a quick regroup in the office, and that night I drove to Hampstead Village and met with John Hurt.
And then they heard that I was then free, so Ridley Scott came to me and we talked till gone midnight, say on the Monday.
Prepared him, of course, for what it was, and he said, so when do I start? And I said, tomorrow morning.
And on the Tuesday morning, I was on the set at 7:30. So it was not a usual film for me. The script didn't arrive, and I didn't mull it over, and I didn't decide this, that, and the other. I had a long pitch from Ridley, and a very interesting one, too. And by the end of it, I said, okay, Ridley, you better send the car around now to take me out to the studio. I
think life and acting and everything is so full of those things. What if it hadn't happened? Like, nobody knows. I think John Hurt would probably still have exactly the same career because he's done so much varied and wonderful work. That really brings us to Ian Holm, who I think is the most wonderful actor and hadn't done anything like that at all before. And Ridley was really thrilled that he wanted to do it. And in those days, he'd done very little film. He'd done a bit of television, but he was very much a theatre star.
Casting was extensive, and even though it's only for 7 people, at the end of the day, I think it's a pretty definitive cast.
The casting is enormously important to the whole making of the film, to the director's concept of the film, because it does so much work for the director, just innately in who you cast. It gives the director so much to work with, or not, if it's not properly cast. So it is an extraordinarily sort of subtle skill that's difficult to explain, but people who know about filmmaking understand it, and audiences who don't know about it appreciate it without always understanding what they're appreciating.